Hello everybody, welcome to episode 4 of American Horror Story Recaps. Today I'm going to be talking about Freak Show, truly the last of a dying breed. They really do not make American Horror Story like this anymore. I was originally going to do the first 4 seasons in one video, then I realized that that would be like 5 hours of video and 15 hours of footage, and I was like, you know, maybe let's just do season by season. Today is the last of the original era of American Horror Story, the golden era of American Horror Story, when it was like every season was great and there was just like little minor flaws about every season. The seasons from here on out definitely start to plummet in quality. So after this season, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from doing American Horror Story and I'm going to move on to some other videos, and then I'll come back to American Horror Story sometime in the new year. Yeah, let's just get into Freak Show. So starting off with the characters, there are a lot of main characters here, just like in Coven. I believe Coven had 12. Here we have 11 characters over 10 actors. So obviously Sarah Paulson is doubling up. And then there's a lot of side characters here. You may also notice that this is the first season since Murder House that I drew lines connecting the characters. The only reason I didn't do it in Asylum and Coven is Asylum, everybody basically knew each other. And I didn't do it in Coven because it wouldn't be realistic because of the tier ranking that I was doing at the end of every episode. This is the first season in which I'm doing the lines since Murder House. It might stay for the rest of the seasons, it might not. Let's get on into the characters because we got a lot to get through. Elsa Mars here. She is the leader of a troupe of freaks in the 1950s. Things I've written down about her is she is determined, she's a little bit of a show-off, and quite frankly, because it is Jessica Lange, she's Mother. Let's just be honest here. So then we have Bet and Dot Tatler. Now, Bet and Dot are conjoined twins, and they are not a part of the Freak Show when the season starts, but they are quickly recruited by Elsa, who is, again, like I said, the ringleader of this whole thing. One thing I wrote down about Bet is that she's very ditzy, she's really friendly, and she has an amazing southern accent. Let me just point that out. She's also very loyal to Dot, her sister, and Dot is a lot more stern, selfish, and more like protective of Bet, whereas Bet is more just loyal to her. So then we have Jimmy Darling. Now Jimmy is charming and he's a little bit of a man-child. Those are the things I wrote down about him. He has lobster claw hands. That's his oddity. One thing about everybody on this board that's a part of the Freak Show is obviously they have to have some kind of oddity. Elsa, I forgot to mention, she has no legs, and it's not revealed really until the end of the first episode, but we'll get into that. Again, the twins are conjoined and Jimmy has lobster claw hands. Then we move on to Ethel Darling, Jimmy Darling's mom. Ethel is a bearded lady. She is Mother, let's just be honest. The accent is interesting. I've never heard an accent quite like that, let's just be honest. She's like the nicest woman. If Elsa is like the mom, she's like the aunt. Next we have Del Toledo. Now Del is a piece of shit. He's like the strong man, and he comes in, I believe in episode 2. He's crusty, annoying, closeted. Oh my goodness, the closeted storyline this season. Let's just put that in the bin for a different day. So then we have Desiree Dupree. Desiree Dupree is a 3-breasted woman, and she is iconic. She's Mother, let's just be honest here. I don't think Angela Bassett can play a bad character. She seeks out community in the Freak Show, whereas Del is really just running from something, and we'll get into that, but she's really like seeking out a community here. So then we have Maggie Esmeralda. Now she, I don't think that's her actual name, but it's her name that she goes by. She is fake. We're not sure if she has a pure intent or not when she first gets to this Freak Show. She's a so-called fortune teller, and we will get into that, but she has some mysterious prospects. She's very also disloyal, very disloyal. Would not trust her. So then we have Gloria and Dandy Mott. Now Gloria is a mother. Not a very good mother to Dandy, but is a mother nonetheless. She's rich, she's inbred, and she's very much, like I said, Mother. Dandy, her son, is a psycho. He just wants to be a part of the Freak Show. Dandy is kind of giving like the rich, spoiled, trust fund child that wants to cosplay as poor. He wants to be a part of this troupe of freaks, but also obviously he has nothing to offer. We'll see what he gets into around the middle of the season. He's really He turns into something. He's kind of psychotic, let's just be honest. And then we have Richard Spencer down here. Krusty. I don't think Dennis O'Hare can play a character that is not the crust lord of the century. So he's giving salesman. He's giving very much slimy, gross. So now that we have all the characters set up, I'm just going to give you like a little explanation about why they're ordered in this way. So up top, we have our establishment. These three have been a part of the freak show and are a part of the freak show at the beginning of the season. Then we have people like Pepper, Eve, Paul, and Penny. Technically, Penny was not part of the freak show at the start of the season. She had to join. We're a part of this troupe from the beginning, so that's why they are on top. Then we have Bet, Dot, Desiree, and Dell. These girlies all joined within episodes 1 and 2, so they're all joining at the start of the season. And then on the bottom row, we have like miscellaneous characters. They are right next to each other because they're family. These two are in one storyline, these two are in another, so that's why there's a separation here. And obviously she joins the troupe, but she's not an actual freak, so that's why she's down here. And Dandy wants to join the freak show, but is not a freak, so therefore he does not join. Everybody above this line is a part of the freak show in one way or another. Obviously, he is not a part of the freak show, but I had to include him because he's a side character and he's close to Elsa Mars. And she is not a part of the freak show, so therefore she's next to Pepper because they have a little side quest, and I'll get into that. He is also another exception, which is why they are like outside the freak show. So these two, these three, and these four are all a part of the freak show. And then there's other side characters that are also a part of the freak show, but they're not as important, so I did not include them on the board. Basically, if a character has any influence on the story at all and does anything within the plot, they are on the board. But if they're not, they sold no units, basically. All right, moving on to episode 1. This season is kind of structured in the way that it's less substance and more style. So seasons 4 and 5 both kind of follow this model where there's not a whole lot going on in the plot, but it's very gorgeous to look at and the characters are amazing. In this season, there is a plot, but it is not as full to the brim, so this might go by a lot faster than some of the other videos. I don't know. This season is also the longest. We're gonna try to get through it. So episode 1, the first day in chronological order that we see is August 31st, 1952. Bet and Dot, these two right here, they are found by a milkman on their farm and taken to a hospital because Bet has been stabbed and their mother was dead on the floor. So, interesting, we're gonna get into that. The milkman takes them to the hospital where the next day, day 1, they are found by Elsa at the hospital. And Elsa Mars arrives with her little German accent, her sleigh German accent, and tries to gather intel on them for a potential new act. So then we see this girl, Bonnie. She is on a picnic with her boyfriend in the park. This guy comes around the corner in a clown outfit and kills the boyfriend and kidnaps her, and we'll get more into her story later on in the episode. Yeah, the whole twisty stuff, it's cool, it's interesting, but it is filler. Basically, this is all setting up the fact that there's a serial killer in the town of Jupiter, Florida, that they live in. This man is responsible for most of, if not all of them. Also, while Elsa meets with these girls, she states that they are like the #1 suspects. Also, another thing on Twisty, he's just creepy. He's just really disgusting. The run that he does when he's kidnapping her, absolutely not. So then we see day 2, September 2nd, 1952. Elsa goes to a diner and sees Jimmy at the diner flirting with one of the girls working there. Elsa then returns to the hospital that same day to get the story from these two about what happened. Dot is trying to do all the talking and have Bet stay quiet because Bet is a little ditzy. She already suspects that they are the ones that killed their mom. The police are suspicious of this as well. We get a flashback to 2 days before they were found and their mom was found. Bet kills their mom. The mom does not want to let these two leave. The mom was like, well, we can't do that, babes. Every time we go out in public, you guys get gawked at and it's a whole thing. She ends up killing the mom and then she ends up stabbing her, and that's when they're found by the milkman, basically. Then we see day 3, the girls enter the freak show. Day 4, we see September 4th. We see the girls meeting all the freaks, including Jimmy. Dot is very, very attracted to this man, Jimmy. So these girls are refusing to eat, I guess, because Elsa basically just like took them. In walks Ethel, and she's like, you guys can't refuse to eat, babes. You're our headliners. Like, you're gonna save this troupe. Because one thing about this freak show is it's dying. It's dying, babes. They can hardly get anyone to come watch the show. The girls are brought in by Elsa to help save the freak show. So we get a flashback to January 12th, 1938, when Ethel is rescued by Elsa and brought to the freak show. So we jump back to day 4. The detective shows up to question the girlies here about their mom, and Jimmy solves this issue by killing the man. We then see Dandy Mott and Gloria Mott attending the freak show, and they are less than impressed, perhaps. The only thing that has their attention is the girl. And after the show, Dandy and Gloria offer to buy the twins from Elsa, to which she says, no, they're my headliners, babes. They're gonna make me millions. Rich boy here, we don't like him, we don't like him. He is just obsessed with these two, like fetishizing them almost. We get a scene where all the freaks cut up the dead cop and bury his body. That's basically where the episode ends. We see Elsa in her tent, and she is taking off her wooden legs, and that's when it is revealed to the audience that she doesn't have legs, but I don't believe anybody at the freak show knows. Okay, episode 2 begins. We see Twisty, the murderer that everyone's talking about, has an abandoned school bus as his like evil lair, and he's holding the girl and some other kid there. He goes to this store, this toy store, and kills these two that own this toy store. This causes the police to set a curfew in Jupiter. Jimmy hears this over the radio. So this is day 6. So then the next day, day 7, Dell and Desiree arrive at the freak show. So they are from Chicago, and they are from a different freak show that they are running from because Dell killed one of the freaks for trying to sleep with his wife. We then see day 9, September 9th. Gloria hires Twisty to entertain her son Dandy. So while this is all happening, Dandy goes to the freak show again and talks to Jimmy and attempts to work for the freak show. Obviously, he doesn't have any talent or special interest, anything. He sends him away. We see Ethel confronting Dell because they know each other. It's revealed that Dell is Jimmy's father. So day 10, we move on to September 10th. Bet and Dot are working on their singing act, and it's revealed that Bet cannot sing a lick. As much as she wants to sing, she can't. She's unable to sing, perhaps. Whereas Dot, she has perfect pitch, and she sings Fiona Apple. Dell is hired by Elsa to be second in command or something, and he says that they need to do a matinee now that the curfew is set and they can't do a nighttime show. They need to do a daytime show. And Elsa's like, no, we're not gonna do that, babes. We're not gonna do that. We're not breaking from tradition, first of all. And second of all, people aren't gonna come here to see freaks in the daylight. And Dell's like, well, that's what's happening. And she's like, that man is gonna be a problem. Jimmy, deal with it. So Jimmy has a confrontation with Dell while they're all at the diner. Dell smacks Jimmy around a bunch and says that he's not a real man. By the way, Dell knows that that's his son, and he's just slapping him around like it's nobody's business, like it's just normal, you know? We see Dandy chase Twisty out into the wilderness, into the swamp, perhaps. And Dandy finds a girl and the other kid that are kidnapped by Twisty and decides to get in on the action. Capture the kids again after they try to escape. So he's crusty, he's gross. We see day 11, September 11th, 1952. Dell frames Meep, a freak, for the murder of the cop because Jimmy put the cop's badge in Dell's caravan, and Dell saw this happen basically and knew about it and grabbed the badge from his own caravan and put it in Meep's caravan. So Meep is arrested, and Jimmy is very upset about this, overly upset. So then we move on to day 19. This is 8 days later. Meep's body is returned to the girlies at the freak show, and this sends Jimmy over the edge. He starts drinking, and we'll see in the next episode, he's just really not gonna do okay for the next while. So usually the Halloween episodes are episodes 4 and 5, but this year they did episodes 3 and 4. This is a 2-part Halloween special. So we jump down about a month and a half later day 55, the American Morbidity Museum in Philadelphia hires Maggie Esmeralda and Richard Spencer to go down to this freak show in Florida to harvest as many freaks as they can. And so that's where these two come in. They are quite literally going there to kill as many freaks and bring them as oddities to this museum. So we jump down to day 61, October 31st, so Halloween. We see a couple flop characters that don't ever show up again. These two kids are trick-or-treating with their mom, and Twisty stalks them and ends up kidnapping the son, the older son. I think his name is Mike. Anyway, so he gets kidnapped by Twisty and brought to his lair in the bus. So this is now the third kidnapping. We see Ethel go to the doctor. She learns that she has cirrhosis of the liver and has less than 6 months to live. So what does Miss Girl do? She goes to the freak show and starts drinking. The girls are asking like the freaks why they don't perform on Halloween. And Miss Girl Ethel right here tells the story of Edward Mordrake. Now, Edward was an aristocrat in the late 1800s. One year on Halloween, October 31st, 1895, Edward Mordrake is driven by his second face because he was born with a face on his front and a face on his back. This creates him as like this figure similar to the Angel of Death from Asylum, where if you perform on Halloween, you summon him. I really don't like the storyline. It's honestly kind of stupid. But basically, this whole episode is them performing on Halloween and summoning this guy to get their stories. So we see Dandy on his side quest this episode, making a clown costume for himself. He's obviously been inspired by Twisty, and he goes out to help Twisty in their Halloween show that they put on for the kids. He goes out to help Twisty with his Halloween show that Twisty is putting on for the kids. So the freaks have a funeral for Meep. That's something that happens on this day. We see Esmeralda arriving at the freak show, claiming to be a psychic medium. She auditions, I guess, for Elsa and tells Elsa her future, and Elsa's like, "You're hired." Dot wishes that she was separated from Bet because she wants to live on her own. So then Elsa, who doesn't believe in the power of Edward Mordrake or whatever, she summons him by performing what? What was that? Oh, Gods and Monsters by Lana Del Rey. She eats this performance just a little too hard as well. I don't know why she's singing Lana Del Rey in the 1950s, but she also sings David Bowie at one point. Anyway, she summons this spirit, Edward Mordrake. Basically, the whole episode from here on out is him getting the stories. He visits Ethel, he visits Paul, he visits Legless Susie, who I didn't put on the board. We learn from Ethel while she has her visit with Edward in 1928. On April 20th, she and Dell are working in Paris. They return to the States, and Jimmy's birth is being showcased as like an attraction for people to come watch. And Ethel kind of gets emotional about this because she regrets exploiting her child like that when it was really all Dell here who was doing it to make money for them. We then see Elsa finally get visited by Edward Mordrake. We get a flashback to January 3rd, 1932. Elsa is not a part of the freak show at this point. She's in Berlin, works as a dominatrix, and she is drugged on this day and taken to do a snuff film where her legs are cut off. She's basically left there to die, and she tells him this. Basically, Edward's thing is that he travels around whenever he's summoned on Halloween. Edward is looking for a soul to claim here, and whoever has the darkest past or something gets taken with him. It doesn't really make any sense, but we see a bunch of freaks all surround him wherever he goes. So yeah, Jimmy and Maggie on their side quest, and they're about to break curfew, and a cop finds them, so they go into the woods, and they are found by Dandy and Twisty, both in clown costumes obviously, and they are brought to the bus where Miss Girl and the other two boys are being held captive. So Dandy and Twisty put on a show for the kids. While this is all happening, Maggie is almost sawed in half by Dandy, who's obviously in a clown costume. This allows, while the clowns are distracted, for Jimmy to set all the kids free, including Maggie. Twisty is being visited by Edward, and we get Twisty's backstory. We see June 2nd, 1943. Twisty is working for a freak show at the time, and this is before he looked like this. He looked like a normal person, a normal clown, perhaps. And he's getting bullied by the freaks, so we learn that his motive is like to kill freaks. And then we see April 30th, 1952. We see Twisty trying to auction off some toys that he made himself, and Mr. Henley, the guy at the toy store that he killed in episode 2, sends him away because he's like being creepy towards the kids at the store. And so this causes him to get upset, and this is obviously why he killed Mr. Henley in episode 2. We see him attempt suicide with a shotgun to the face, but obviously this doesn't work, so he has to wear a mask. So we see that this story satisfies Edward enough to take Twisty's life. Dandy returned home to kill his maid Dora while his mom is asleep. This is basically where we leave the Halloween episodes. All the kids, by the way, all the kids are returned to their families. Maggie and Jimmy are both free. They go back to the freak show. The people of Jupiter go to the freak show and buy a bunch of tickets because Jimmy is a hero of the town and set everybody free. That's basically where we leave the 2-part Halloween episode. It's definitely probably my least favorite of the first 4 Halloween specials when they were still doing 2-parters. I believe season 5's Halloween episode is only 1 episode, and then I don't think they ever really have one after that. It kind of drags a little bit. I think there are too many flashbacks, and I don't quite understand the Edward Mordrake situation. I don't know why they had to include him. I think they were running out of ideas. Let's move on to episode 5. All right, so day 69, we see it's November 8th, 1952. We see Richard and Maggie, who are plotting to kill every one of the freaks here at the freak show. I think Maggie is a little bit more hesitant, and Richard, he wants to kill everyone, basically. We have Maggie on the inside, and Richard comes in to go undercover as like a Hollywood agent to get Elsa Mars her own TV show, and this is like a main storyline for this season. So that was day 69, but jumping back to the day after Halloween, day 62, which is where episode 4 left off, we see Gloria discover the body of Dora downstairs, and obviously Gloria knows that Dandy killed the maid. One thing about Gloria, she's not going to give her son up. She's going to be an accomplice to the end, perhaps. We then see day 70, November 9th. Richard arrives at the freak show to pose as Elsa's manager from Hollywood. We see before Full House, like the full sold out show, Jimmy and Desiree have a little moment in Desiree's caravan, and Desiree starts bleeding out. Jimmy was touching her. Ethel takes her to the doctor, and we find out through this doctor that Desiree actually had a miscarriage. And this is when Desiree learns that she's actually like a full-blown woman and can actually have children. So during the show, we see Elsa get booed off stage by everybody in attendance at this sold-out show. And so she decides to take Richard up on his offer for a television show, because before she was hesitant to get on TV because she sees TV as like an abomination. We then see the next day, day 71, November 10th. We see Richard attempting to kill the girls with pink cupcakes that are poisoned, and they're like, "We have to watch our figure, thank you." We get a scene where Del is at this gay bar because he's gay and he doesn't like want to tell anybody he's closeted, whatever. We see him at this gay bar and he meets Andy, this guy, or I guess he's already met him and he's like just been with him for weeks at this point. Andy then meets Dandy, and Dandy takes him to the clown's bus that is now abandoned and kills the man. So we see this man is becoming a full-blown killer here. We see Del return to the camp, and it is here where him and Desiree break up, and Desiree goes to move in with Ethel in her caravan. We see Gloria get a call from Miss Regina Ross. Now this is Dora Ross's daughter, who's played by Queenie from season 3, Slay. She calls asking why her mother has not picked up the phone in a couple days, and she's like, "I'm sure your mom's just out buying squash for me, dear. She'll return return soon. Girl, you fucking let your son fucking kill her. We then see, because Richard has taken a special interest in the twins, Elsa is jealous of them now and decides to ship them off to Gloria and Dandy. So she quite literally sold them to these two, and we'll pick back up in that in episode 6. All right, so episode 6 opens on day 73. We got quite a few days to get through. Elsa Mars tells everybody in the troupe that the twins have left, when in reality she sold them. We see November 13th, it's Elsa's birthday party. She opens all her presents, silences anyone asking questions about the twins, because everyone at the troupe is kind of a little upset that the twins have left, and they're all shifting focus from Elsa's birthday party celebration, extravaganza eleganza, and everyone is more concerned about the twins than her, and of course, she can't have that. Miss Girl, she already sold them because they were stealing attention away from her, and now that she sold them, everybody is more focused on them still being gone rather than her and her birthday party. So we see Paul and Penny, who is his girlfriend now. They sleep together. Penny's dad is having none of this, and he's like, you don't ever need to go over to that freak show again. Our name matters in this town. So then we see day 75, November 14th. Dandy has been spoiling the twins with caviar, something that Bet is all excited about. So he's been spoiling them with dresses and new diaries and hair products and all this stuff. And while he is doing all this, Bet is falling for Dandy just a little bit. She trusts him a little bit more than Bet does. And we see in their journal entries, the language, the way that Dot talks about Dandy is a lot different than the way that Bet talks about Dandy. Dot is just going along with it because he has the money to separate them. So then we see day 76, November 15th, 1952. Paul is out buying perfume for Penny. Dandy is out buying a bunch of stuff for the twins. He has double everything. So Paul suspects that this guy literally bought the twins from Elsa. Another thing here, we see Paul is having an affair with Elsa at the same time that he is together with Penny. Okay, he does not trust the fact that they just ran off without saying a word. So Paul brings his concerns to Jimmy, and Jimmy is hesitant to believe it at first. So we see Elsa go nuts on all the freaks. She rips up all her presents and throws them out at everybody. And she's like, what can I do to earn all of your trust? I already gave you a home. Like, Miss Girl is manipulating them just a little too hard. She's on her girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight moment. I think I said those out of order. But anyway, she is just gaslighting. All the freaks are like, girl, what? Like, what can we do? Like, what do you want? So Miss Girl grabs a spinning wheel, like a Bullseye spinning wheel, ties him to it, and starts throwing knives to gain, like, their trust, I guess. This does not end well, however. Paul gets one right in the stomach. Miss Girl does not call the police either. Penny arrives because he was late for their date, I guess. The next day, day 77, November 16th, we see Ethel. She warns Elsa that if anything did happen to the twins on Elsa's account, Ethel would kill Elsa with her bare hands. And also, I forgot to mention, these two are like sisters. So this coming from Ethel is a sign of things to come, perhaps. Suddenly, we see Miss Girl is interested in Jimmy. Jimmy, in the last episode, tried to get with Maggie, but Maggie was like turning him down, and now all of a sudden wants to be with him because she knows that Richard is gonna go on this like killing spree. She tries to get him to run away with her so that she doesn't have to be a part of any of this chaos, to which Jimmy is like, why are you all of a sudden just like interested in me? Like, girl, literally last week you were turning me down, perhaps. Let's get on into episode 7. Alright, so episode 7 begins, continuing on day 77. We see Jimmy go over to Dandy's house to see what actually happened, and he reveals that yes, the twins are there, and Elsa did sell them. He takes the twins with him back to the freak show after they agree to go, because Dot is not getting much fulfillment out of this as much as Bet is. So they go with Jimmy back to the freak show, much to Dandy's dismay. But then once they get to the freak show to try and expose Elsa with Jimmy after a very spirited cover of Nirvana's Come As You Are from Jimmy, Jimmy tries to expose Elsa and with the help of the girls, but the girls are like, she didn't sell us. Elsa's like, what game are you playing, babes? What game are you playing? What do you want? The girls are like, we want 50% of the box office, perhaps. Richard tries to extort Dell because he saw him at one of the gay bars into killing some of the freaks for him because Maggie is too like chicken shit to do it. Dell fails to kill Amazon Eve because Eve is just like so much taller than him. It's so comical. Everyone at the freak show was like, what the fuck, Dell? So then day 78, it's November 17th, Jimmy and Dell go to a bar, and this is originally Jimmy trying to deal with Dell, because Jimmy's so much of a man, I guess. He kind of has like a macho complex about him, just a little bit. And this is when we find out that Jimmy already knows that Dell is his dad, and they have like a nice father-son bonding experience. They return back to the freak show the next morning, and this same morning, Penny returns back to her house after helping Paul the day before, and her dad basically knocks her unconscious with the help of this like tattoo artist. And he's like, since you want to be one of the freaks so bad, let me just disfigure you. So he gets this tattoo artist to shave her head and like tattoo like a lizard scale all over her face. So she becomes like the lizard girl. And this embarrassment basically causes her to permanently move out of her dad's house. Dell and Jimmy return to the freak show, and Elsa's like, good job, Jimmy. You really dealt with him like we asked you to. So then the next day, day 80, we see it's November 19th. Dot attempts to get Elsa to help her with the surgery, like to pay for the surgery. Ethel overhears Elsa and Richard plotting to kill the twins, perhaps. Elsa wants the twins out of her life, so she attempts to get Richard to help send them off somewhere so that she never has to deal with them again. But Richard, he has ulterior motives because he just wants the twins dead and at that American Morbidity Museum. So while they're having this whole conversation, Ethel overhears this, is quite in shock.
Don't act shocked.
Because this reveals to Ethel that Elsa is not as loving to the twins as she puts out. And at the end of the episode, we see Dell kill Ma Petite, who is one of the freaks there. She's like the shortest woman alive, perhaps. And he kills her. And one thing about Ma Petite, she is everyone's baby. Ethel, Elsa, Jimmy, Eve, Maggie, even Maggie loves her. Richard brings her body to the American Morbidity Museum 3 days later on November 22nd. And that's where we leave episode 7. Again, not a whole lot happens. The biggest thing, Ethel hears Elsa try to get Richard to take the twins away, and Dell kills Ma Petite. Alright, so episode 8 opens on day 100. This episode is kind of out of order. There's some that are after day 100 and some that are before day 100, but the first scene starts on day 100 when Gloria is in a therapy session with a doctor, and she claims that she should have seen the evil in Dandy sooner. I think it might be beneficial for you to see him. And the doctor's like, yeah, I would like to personally get to know this man. We then jump back a few days, so day 84. This is the day after Ma Petite was shown at the American Morbidity Museum. We see all the freaks looking for Ma Petite's body in the bog, and all they can find is Ma Petite's clothes, because Krusty right here, just to recap, Richard is blackmailing Dell because Richard knows that Dell is gay, and you know, Dell can't have that come out, so he has to kill someone, basically. Then we get a really long, excellent scene, by the way, where Ethel confronts Elsa about Elsa's lies. Ethel believes that Elsa is responsible for the death of Ma Petite. Obviously still believes that she is responsible for the twins disappearing. So these two get in a heated argument. Ethel shoots Elsa's leg because they're in a heated argument. And Miss Girl, Elsa, she's like, oh, Ethel, you don't know everything about me, babes. So Miss Girl tells her life story, it is revealed by Elsa that this guy Massimo, I don't know his name, was the one that saved her. He was like a soldier in Berlin, and he created her legs for her. We then jump back to the present, where Ethel and Elsa are in an argument. She threatens to kill Elsa because she made her a promise like 2 episodes ago that she would do that if she found out that anything happened to the twins on Elsa's watch. This causes Elsa to throw a knife right into the eye of Ethel. Ethel dies. Such a shocking move, I feel like, because Ethel, her like cirrhosis and stuff, we thought that, like, I thought that was going to be like a main thing this season, and it really like was not the thing that caused her to die. Miss Girl literally just like kills her right now, and the audience is like, okay, that was weird timing. Day 85 on the timeline, November 23rd, we see Elsa and Richard basically disposing of Ethel's body and framing it as a suicide. The freaks are led to believe that Ethel, like, beheaded herself, which is so gruesome. Jimmy finds this out from Esmeralda, who claims to be the one that found the body. This sends Jimmy over the edge. So then we jump down again to day 100 again. Gloria returns from her therapy session and finds that Regina Ross is now in her house looking for her mother, and Dandy has been trying to distract her. Gloria sends her off, basically claiming that her mom is not coming back for a while. And Miss Girl is like, she's very suspicious because she knows Dandy is a little off in the brain. So on this day, the freaks have a funeral for Ethel, and Jimmy hosts, or I guess does like the eulogy. Penny, Legless, Susie, Eve, and Desiree all team together to form a plan to kill her dad for turning her into like a lizard. So on day 105, Dandy has a therapy session and Regina visits them again, claiming that she's going to come back with the police. We jump down to the next day, day 106. We see Elsa go to a fat camp and she hires this girl, Ima, but her name is really Barbara, but like Elsa bills her as Ima Wiggles. Okay, and she says that this girl is going to be the twins' replacement. I forgot to mention, Ethel has stored the twins at a motel and has not told anybody where they are. We then see a scene where Desiree, Eve, Legless Susie, and Penny all turn Penny's dad into a chicken with like feathers and black tar. And later we see Dandy confronting his mother. Dandy tells his mother that she is going to give him immense power when he bathes in her blood. So Dandy kills his mom and then bathes in her blood. Day 107, December 16th, we see Jimmy becoming very fond of Ima because he has just lost his mother. He like buries his sorrow in her. It's kind of just like a fetish. But yeah, let's get on into episode 9. Alright, so not a whole lot happens in episode 9, day 108, December 17th, 1952. We see Dandy go to the freak show to get a reading from Maggie. Maggie's like, I can almost place your voice, like I recognize it from somewhere. Weird. Then we get a scene where Elsa finds the twins holed up at a motel, claims that she is going to help them get their surgery that they've been begging her for. Well, really, that Dot has been begging her for, with the help of Richard, because obviously these two have a plan to send the girls off to the Morbidity Museum. This episode, Jimmy is just really going through it with the loss of his mother in the last episode. So he goes to seek comfort in the Tupperware girls. He is so drunk that he hallucinates his mother being there in the room with them, and the girls are all like, you're scaring us. We're gonna kick you to the curb. We then see Regina confronting Dandy again, but then she is told to basically get the fuck out. He doesn't want to kill her because she's always understood him, because they were friends as kids. I don't know if I mentioned that. He says that Regina was the only one that ever understood him. Oh yeah, we get a scene where Dandy kills the Avon lady and then sews her head on the mom's head. So he literally creates like a two-headed Gloria, and it's just, girl, your fetish is disgusting. We see Dot trying to convince Bet to get the surgery with her. I think this is when they agree that they're not gonna get a surgery. We then see the next day, day 109, December 18th, 1952, we see Dell attempting suicide after Desiree left him. But during this, Desiree cuts him loose. We get another scene where Dandy pays off the police officer that Regina brings, and this police officer literally accepts money from Dandy to kill Regina. Bet and Dot have returned to the show at this point, and they try to sleep with Jimmy, who turns them down, unfortunately. Bet is blonde now, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, in the next scene, we see the police come for Jimmy because he has been accused by Dandy of the Tupperware party massacre. Jimmy is basically taken to the police station and arrested, and that's where we leave episode 9. Freak Show is really spread out in its plot. Alright, so episode 10, a lot of stuff happens, so stay with me. This is one of my favorite episodes of this entire series. Let's get on into it. We start out on day 111, December 20th. We see Pepper's boyfriend, who is also named Salty, dies. Pepper is in a period of mourning. The next day, day 112, December 21st, Pepper refuses to move from Salty, like his resting place, his bed, crying and crying and crying, and it's really sad. Desiree is trying to read her a story. Desiree has to get to the show and has to stop for the meantime to Pepper, and Pepper gets upset about this. You get a scene where Elsa gives the body of Salty to the devil himself, Mr. Richard Spencer, and Richard takes his body to the American Morbidity Museum. What a shock. Elsa tells Desiree that maybe it's time for her to give Pepper a new home. Now that Elsa is leaving, she not only lost her boyfriend, but lost Ma Petite a few episodes ago, and is going to lose Elsa very soon, because Elsa has a TV deal lined up with Richard Spencer. She plans to take Pepper back to her sister. We see a flashback to December 1st, 1936, when Elsa Mars is in search of a better life after being mutilated in Nazi Germany. So she moves to America and starts working in the Carney folk community. We see 2 years later, March 30th, 1938, we see Elsa go to an orphanage to adopt Pepper, and we learn that Pepper was Elsa's first freak that she collected. Then we see August 23rd of the same year, Elsa buys Ma Petite from an Indian slave. And then the next year, so 1939, it's March 7th, Elsa realizes that Pepper is lonely, adopts Salty as well. And then we see Desiree with her new boyfriend, Angus. I don't think I mentioned him, but basically she met this guy who's like absolutely in love with her, and her and Angus go to a reading from Maggie. Maggie reveals to Desiree that her and Richard are working together to collect as many of these freaks as possible. And Desiree is like, I want to see the proof, bitch. And that is on, forgot to mention, that is on December 23rd, day 114. We get a flashback to April 4th, 1941, the day that Richard recruited Maggie. Then we jump down to day 117. It's December 26th. Richard Spencer visits Jimmy in jail, because remember in the last episode, Jimmy got arrested. So Richard visits Jimmy and offers to help raise the funds to get Jimmy out of jail. Jimmy is like, well, I don't have any money. Like, what do you want me? Like, there's no way for me to get out of here. Richard offers to take Jimmy's hands from him because apparently Richard knows somebody interested in buying the hands. So then day 118, December 27th, Maggie and Desiree fly out to the American Morbidity Museum, and Maggie shows Desiree all of the things that her and Richard have been collecting, such as the head of Salty, Ma Petite, and recently Jimmy's hands. Day 119, December 28th, we see Elsa giving Pepper back to her sister, Rita. This is where the emotions really run high because Elsa has to say goodbye to Pepper, and this is just a really, really touching scene. I get emotional every time I watch it, perhaps. Pepper says goodbye to Elsa, and then we get a series of flash forwards to 1962, so 10 years after this all happens. We see January 1st, 1962. At this point, she's lived with her sister for a whole 10 years. The sister has this baby after like the age of 50. Pepper is very nurturing to the baby, much like she was to Ma Petite before Ma Petite died. Pepper's sister wants absolutely nothing to do with this baby. The husband hates Pepper as well. So the husband and the sister devise a plan to get Pepper locked up in an asylum. So they kill the baby. They kill the baby and frame Pepper for it. We then get the slay of a century, the first ever time that this has ever happened in this show. We see the return of Miss Lily Rabe as Sister Mary Eunice McKee. So Pepper has returned in this season, and it is the same character as I mentioned earlier in the video. She was obviously in asylum, and this is the first time that we ever see a character appear twice in more than one season, and this is the first time that the doors were open for it to be an expanded universe. Because before they were all stories that were told in different universes, but then this is the first instance where there was ever a crossover. This line here represents a flash forward. So we see January 26th, Pepper arrives at the asylum in Mary Eunice's care. We see Pepper sifting through magazines and separating them for Mary Eunice, and Miss Girl is looking through all the magazines and sees one of them has Elsa Mars's face on it. Now remember, this is 10 years after the events of Freak Show Babes, so a lot has happened. Elsa Mars, it is revealed, has gone to Hollywood at this point. Pepper sees this magazine and gets all teary, and it's such an emotional scene. It's such a great episode. That is where we leave episode 10, one of the best episodes of television. Again, not a lot happens, but it is an amazingly done crossover and also origin story for Pepper, because there's a lot of flashbacks about Pepper up here. It's not only an origin story from when Pepper was found by Elsa, but also an origin story of how she got to the asylum. It touches every nerd bone in my body, and I mean that in the least gross way possible. We jump backward to day 117, December 26th. We see Richard again at the cell of Jimmy. We see this is how Jimmy got his hands taken off. Richard breaks Jimmy out of jail, takes him to this doctor to cut his hands off, and then just leaves him there. So the hospital takes Jimmy. Richard is off to Philadelphia to put the hands in jars, where they are discovered by Maggie and Desiree in episode 10. But Jimmy has just been left at this hospital. So then day 120, December 29th, we see this guy, Chester, arrive, played by Neil Patrick Harris. Now, Chester is a magician. This is one of my least favorite storylines this whole season. Chester is there to get a job, and he is a magician. He has this like doll. He's like a ventriloquist also. He has this doll named Marjorie. So then we see Bet and Dot burning their diaries because they are no longer in need of any secrets, because they have decided to stay whole. We see Chester auditioning for Elsa, and Elsa originally declines his audition, but then realizes how good he is with numbers and decides that he can stay around for the bookkeeping. We get a scene where Dell and Eve devise a plan to break Jimmy out of jail because he has been taken back to jail. We see these two are very infatuated with Chester and decide that he is the one that they are going to give up their virginity to. Okay, he's kind of crusty, but okay. During all this, when they actually lose their virginity, Dandy is lurking around and has hired a private investigator to spy on these two, and Mr. Jelly over here is just so upset to see them living their best lives. We get a flashback to June 6th, 1944, where Chester kills his wife and his wife's girlfriend because he was in the war and his wife got a girlfriend. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Anyway, he blames it on the doll and thinks that the doll did it. And so this is why he's here, because he's been on the run for like 6-7 years. We jump back to the present day where Elsa just decides to flat out sell the show to Chester because she is leaving because Richard has promised her a life of stardom. We get a scene where Dell confesses to Desiree that he is the one that killed Ma Petite, indeed. After he confesses, Elsa pops up out of nowhere and shoots him in the head and kills him. Thank God. So then Desiree and Maggie expose everything to Elsa about Richard, and that sets us up for the next episode. Alright, so episode 12, the penultimate episode, opens with all the freaks dismembering Richard after the mean streak he had of like killing all of them all season. This starts on December 31st, 1952, so New Year's Eve. It's day 122. So then the next day, New Year's Day, we see Maggie going over to where Jimmy is being held to hide from the police, changing his bandages after his hands have been taken off. And Jimmy is like upset at her, obviously, because she was in on this whole plan and he does not forgive her for what she did. And she's like, I'm gonna make it up to you, I promise, baby. Girl, you're not gonna make it up to him. We see the next day, January 2nd, 1953. Obviously, Elsa's plans of going to Hollywood have been tarnished now that Richard was revealed to not be a Hollywood agent. She brings Massimo over to help Jimmy with his issues with his hands. So he is gonna make Jimmy's prosthetics. Meanwhile, in Ethel's caravan, a bunch of the freaks plan on killing Elsa because there is a rumor going around that she was in on a lot of the murders. You get a scene where Dandy exposes Chester to the girls, because Dandy has a private investigator investigating this guy who finds out that he killed his wife and his wife's girlfriend. So Dandy tells the girls this, and they're like, we will steer clear of him, perhaps. We get a scene where Jimmy finally gets his new hands from Massimo, day 125, so January 3rd. Chester is now, again, the owner of the show at this point, has decided to do this saw trick where he's going to saw a woman in half. So Maggie, being the little ditz that she is, she agrees to be like the volunteer for this practice in which he quite literally does saw her in half. So Maggie dies. Because he's so wrong in the head, like there's something wrong with Chester. I don't know if I really explained that enough last episode, but Chester, there's something wrong with him. He believes that a doll is the one that's responsible for everything that he does. We get a flashback to May 30th, 1946. It's Jimmy's first juggling act. The flashbacks for the timeline are now complete. There are no more flashbacks from here on out. We go back to the present day, day 125, January 3rd. Bet and Dot end up tipping Elsa off that the rest of the freaks are going to kill her. She calls this little lunatic over and sells him the show. Obviously, he ran off, like reported himself to the police, and now he's in jail. We don't see him again. And Elsa leaves because her whole troupe is planning on murdering her. That's basically where we leave episode 12, the penultimate episode. Alright, so we have finally made it to the finale of Freak Show. We begin on January 8th, 1953. The freaks all attempt to quit the show once they find out that Dandy is the new owner and is treating them like shit. So it's January 9th, 1953. This causes Dandy to go on a killing spree. We see him kill Eve, Paul, Penny. He kills almost all the freaks there besides Bet and Dot that he takes hostage, Desiree, who gets out, and Jimmy, who is not at the show at the time. And then obviously Elsa is gone. She's gone to Hollywood, perhaps. Oh yeah, we see Elsa in Hollywood. She's trying to get a meeting with one of the executives at a television network, and she's been waiting there all day. She meets this guy named Mr. Beck, who would later become her husband. Oh yeah, we see Jimmy arriving at the freak show to find the Massacre. And Jimmy has his new hands at this point, by the way. And he arrives to find Desiree, the only one alive at this point. They devise a plan to get the twins back from Dandy, because Dandy is living in his house with the twins. So then we jump down a couple days. It's January 14th, 1953. Bet and Dot get married to Dandy and pretend to be in love with him to satisfy his ego, while they plan to get Jimmy and Desiree in to help them escape. So the next day, January 15th, 1953, we see these four girlies all kill Dandy in such entertaining fashion, by the way. They take him back to the show. They put him in the Houdini escape tank. He's like tied to the floor of the tank and he has to like swim out to try and get out. He has no talent, so he can't do that. He drowns in this tank and it's just a very satisfying end for this crust right here. We jump forward to 1960. So 7 years later, on October 15th, Elsa Mars is in Hollywood and she has become a huge star at this point in television and radio and music. She's a singer as well. Her past is exposed when the snuff film that she did not consent to is released to broadcast and news networks that are threatening to expose it. So Miss Girl feels like her only option left is to kill herself because there's no coming back from that. And we see that she's living a very miserable life. It's very much not the glamour that she thought it would be. So she decides to perform on Halloween to get Edward to come back and take her soul. October 31st, 1960, this barely fits on the board. I'm not sure if you can even see that, but on October 31st, Halloween, 1960, Elsa performing on her TV show Live, Edward Mordrake is summoned and he ends up taking her life on live TV. Oh, we can also see in the future, Jimmy and Bet and Dot are married and Bet and Dot are pregnant. We see Desiree with her husband and they have a couple kids now. A quick ending for these girlies, but it's nice to see their aftermath. Elsa is taken to the afterlife where she's reunited with Ethel and Eve and Paul and all the freaks. She gives one last performance as Elsa Mars. It's a way to send off Jessica Lange in the final scene of Freak Show. So that does it for Freak Show. It's one of my favorites, not in terms of the story. I feel like the story here definitely took a back seat. Like, as much shit that is actually on this timeline, not much of it is actually story-based. A lot of it is just stuff that the characters do. I would say the main plot of this season revolves around him trying to take all the freaks, and then Dandy trying to take the twins for himself, and then his killing spree. Other than that, it's really just a bunch of amazing actors showing off their skills. It's kind of similar to Coven in that way, that it's really just like about the performances and not so much about the plot. But yeah, I would say this season is definitely like 8 to 9 out of 10 territory. It's not as good as Asylum or Coven, but this is when the quality starts to slip a little bit. Let me know what you guys thought about this season and how soon you guys want to see the rest of the seasons. I think I'm gonna take a short break after this season. But yeah, this has been so much fun. These boards, I don't know where I'm gonna store them, to be honest with you. They're just like in my basement right now. Soon enough, I'm not gonna have any space for them. So, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned for whatever comes next, because I'm also planning on doing recaps for other television shows. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.